So what happens in sprint planning? Just like it sounds, it is a sprint. Let's say for this example, this is a 2-week sprint. We are planning this 2 weeks time box. We're planning on what goes into these 2 weeks where we can take in the work and we get this work to done, that this work is shippable to the customer can use it and give us feedback. So when you're planning it, we're not just planning for developing it, we're planning it for developing and then testing and kind of making sure this product is ready to be shipped to the customer. Scrum Master facilitates this meeting, meaning he will get the calendar invite to everybody and he'll reserve the room and make sure this time is blocked in everybody's calendar. Product owner is one of the main players in this meeting. Product owner comes in and he understands the vision of the product, he knows the needs and the challenges of the product, and he's coming back to the team and he's saying that, hey, I know these items are the most important items to the stakeholder and this is the priority. And once the team looks at the priority, they can now say that, okay, well, based on this priority, these are the items that we feel very confident that we can deliver. But these 1 or 2 items we're not very sure about, or we need to do more research. So then it's pretty much a back and forth discussion between the team and the product owner. Maybe they're negotiating on what should be the scope of the sprint. And after the discussion, let's say it is a 2-week sprint, the planning will be for 2 hours. And in these 2 hours, they create a clear, concrete plan on how they're gonna work and how they're gonna create this potentially shippable item in this 2 weeks iteration. They will also have already learned about the risk, the dependencies that the work in the sprint might have, and they actually had resolved these challenges, risks, and impediments for team to start out the work. The other thing that they walk out is a very clear picture or a goal for the iteration or the sprint. They know exactly why they are doing this work, and it's not necessarily just individual people working on 1 or 2 stories. It's for one specific goal that they have. One last thing to remember is a sprint backlog comes out of the sprint planning meeting. Sprint backlog is the amount of work that the team member agreed to work on that sprint. For example, we took a 2 weeks iteration. Let's say they have about 12 user stories that they said we can get this done in the next 2 weeks. That is the sprint backlog. And let's just take an example. There are a few scenarios what happens in the sprint planning meeting. When I was a Scrum Master, team had come up with the sprint goal and team had already committed to a certain amount of user stories, and director of a product came back and said, oh, we need these 2 things done right away. So what would you do when you are running Scrum and somebody comes back and wants to add more scope to your sprint? One of the things that I did is I actually went back to the product owner and I also communicated with the director saying that, hey, this is great that this is important. Would you like to talk to our product owner who does the prioritization of the work, and based on the urgency and the value that it brings to the organization, we can prioritize and put that in the next iteration. There was another time where this was peak season for this team where they would get a lot of production support, or they would have to support their customer base, where we knew that some of the tickets would come and team members would have to support these users. And one of the things that we did in the sprint planning meeting is we said, hey, this is already happening. How can we allocate some time, some buffer time, so we can also focus on supporting our user base, because this is a very peak 1 month of the year where we need to be there for our customers. So we allocated 5 story points per sprint for supporting the customer in that sprint.